Hello, and welcome to Pivotal Moments HQ, a podcast sharing, exploring, and celebrating stories of change through mindset and wellness and their impact on relationships. We are all agents of change and have the power to pivot at any point, at any time. I'm your host, Melissa along with my co-host, Siria Gutierrez. On this episode, we recap our journey since episode 40. We talk about what stood out, our personal highlights, and our intentions for the next year. Recap time. It's been a minute.
It has been a minute since we have done a recap. How many episodes has it been?
13.
Damn. That's a lot of episodes.
It is a lot of episodes, and I think you and I will, every time we reach a new 10, whether it's 40 or 50, we're like, shit, we've been doing this for 50 plus episodes now.
Mm-hmm. And what's really exciting is that our very next episode, if we get our shit together, guys, it's going to be our live episode for our 1-year anniversary. So this recap's actually pretty special because it's the last recap before we celebrate that 1 year.
I cannot believe it's been a year. I mean, I can, but I can't.
There's so much.
There is so much. So let's just take it back and just quickly go over the episodes that have taken place since our last recap, which was the appreciative resilience. We had a mental health day, ambition, bullying with Dolly, forgiveness, toxic masculinity with Mozo, Father's Day dread, classic, evolving and self-healing with Nicolette, enmeshed families, building our empire, the mental health benefits of fandom with with Dr. Lynn.
I'm a little biased.
Zubernus, integration of the self, and the post-pandemic mode. The PPM, I think, is what we referred it to.
Yes, the PPM, what this all means for everybody. That was a very nice summary of everything that we've been through. I like to think of this last, dare I say, quarter of the podcast, and in Q4 of Pivotal Moments podcast, this is what we did and this is what we accomplished. But I like to think of this as our tour around Clubhouse because several of our guests were there, but we also tapped into some of our own personal relationships that we brought in, starting with the appreciative resilience one. That was one of your relationships.
Yeah, it was with my colleagues, Jeannie Coquel and Joan MacArthur Blair. Absolutely love them. It was really nice just to bring them on the show and to learn a little bit more about what it is that they do. And it was funny because that kind of just leads into the first question, which I was going to ask you is, what episode stands out to you most and why? And for me, it was the appreciative resilience because I found it fascinating, especially because this episode dropped when we were still in the midst of COVID, and I think restrictions were just starting to lift, but especially combating depression and fighting this feeling of despair, but using this model that they introduced, it was a nice way to be able to reframe and to also find hope in the midst of it all.
Yes. And I loved the metaphor on that one about being against the waves. And I got to tell you, when I was at the beach in June, I kind of thought about it. It's like, yeah, you know what? This makes a difference. Like if you are going to try to get knocked down by everything that comes your way, or if you're going to look forward and kind of embrace the waves that are coming your way. And so we had a lot of fun with the beach wave metaphor on that episode.
We did. That went on for like 15 minutes, and it's not often, that something I say sticks. So I was just like, man, they're going with it. That's awesome. But for you, what episode stood out for you?
I really enjoyed, not only was our tour of Clubhouse, but it was like a tour of Latinx speakers that were coming through with us. And so I really enjoyed having that. But if I'm going to narrow it down to one episode.
Why do I have a feeling I know what it's going to be?
Oh, okay. Well, go ahead, Miss Smarty Pants. Which one is it?
Okay, I'm going to say that it's the mental health benefits of fandom.
Well, you know what? Maybe I'll change my mind. How about that? You know what? It really was that one. It was a tie between that and Father's Day Dread because I feel like there was so much growth in the Father's Day Dread episode. But what I loved about the mental health benefits episode with Lynn, also known as Fangasm in the fandom, is it really was just, I think she was the first person that I really started talking to about fandom and it not being a bad thing. Like, ooh, I'm at this convention, like, you know, nobody needs to know. And she even made a little video for Matt, just telling him about the benefits of, you know, me being in that space. And he's just like, I don't buy it.
How much did you pay her to do that?
Zero. We just had a beautiful conversation. It was like, wow, here I am talking to the psychologist. And so to be able to bring it full circle and have that discussion here on the podcast and, you know, bring someone who doesn't have, you know, fandom tendencies, if you will, into the fold and just kind of getting that appreciation of just understanding that, hey, it is something that is a way for us to express ourselves or feel like we're in a space where we can be our full authentic selves. I just thought it was a really fun conversation.
What I really also appreciated about that particular episode, you know, the friends you keep are typically a reflection of you, but obviously, you know, you're not going to engage or like everything that that person does. And when we're on the pod, we typically agree on most things, whether it has to do with science or our value systems and our beliefs. But that one was probably the only episode where we were on other ends of the spectrum where, you know, I think I shared that there really wasn't any one thing that engaged me to the extent that Supernatural engaged you. And I'm saying Supernatural, and I know that there's other
That's my main
bands.
fandom. It's okay. It's all right.
But I mean, but you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that was kind of nice to be kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum and have, you know, Dr. Lynn kind of just facilitating that discussion and providing new insights that really opened my eyes. I'm still not a fan of things, but that's okay because it gives me a new sense of appreciation from where you're coming from.
But you're a fan of like people, not necessarily celebrities.
I mean, to an extent, like I tolerate you, you know?
Well, yeah, I know that, but it's like, okay, so, you know, I'm on the spectrum. I'm a little bit more, okay, yeah, I kind of like her. We'll, you know, hype her up, whatever, on the gram. And so you do those things, but at least you get to kind of see, all right, here's what it is. And, you know, maybe you get your fulfillment through different ways, and that's okay too. And I think that that's what I really enjoyed about the conversation was it was normalizing, and it wasn't, you know, sports are good and fans are bad. It was like, whoa, no, there's like gender issues here. There's things involved. And really, when you take a step back, it's like, as long as you're not delusional and you don't actually think, you know, you are in a relationship with any of the things that you're fangirling over, then it's okay. It's a healthy expression of yourself.
What is one thing that we've covered on the show since the last recap that has energized you the most?
Energized me the most? I would say... that's a good question.
Would you like me to go while you...
I would like you to go. I would like you to go while I stall.
Not stall, it's reflect. I think that's why I have to have show notes. But for me, it was building our empire. And the reason why that energized me most is because I feel like it was like, not the pinnacle, but I'm at the start of something new. And we talked about the start of, you know, Gutierrez Law Firm and Pug Productions, LLC. And it's at the start of something big. And it just was so exciting and energizing to be able to talk about it because a lot of thought, love, care, tears, sweat was poured into each of these companies. And they're just growing exponentially. So it's exciting.
It is very, very exciting. And looking back at all of the episodes, I'm just thinking... I don't think any one thing stood out as energizing myself. I know we did try to do a little bit more of awareness in the mental health space during the month of May, and I really appreciated that because that is a space that I want to be in. But overall, I enjoyed all of the conversations. I enjoyed the path of moving forward. And I would say that, you know, specifically that episode, Building Our Empire, that there were a lot of things that were announced there. And I can speak for the Gutierrez Law portion of it. It was nice to let the audience know. And if you follow me on some of the other socials, you may have already known, but just to, it's one thing to read things like the blog post, and it's another thing to actually hear it from the horse's mouth. Hello, I am the horse in this one. She's just going to love this. And so I did think that you're speaking your truth, and I think that that's probably what's come out the most in all of these episodes, and not even just in this last corner, but in all of it, is that we are exercising our voice and our knowledge and our perspective, and I love all of that.
So I know that there might not be necessarily one episode that has energized you most, but is there anything, in looking at our episode list, that stands out to you from our last recap to now?
Anything that stands out? The Father's Day dread. I'll go back to that one. I think that there was a noticeable shift. And if you are one of our listeners that's been listening from the beginning, or whether you're just joining us now, if you go through, there's definitely a theme of the daddy issues, right? And there might be a drinking game involved in that as well. But there was a noticeable shift in the energy on how we both perceive our relationships with our fathers. I mean, to the point where I can say now, this episode is coming out just a couple weeks before my 20th high school reunion. And I was thinking about my dad. I was thinking about him recently and reaching out to him because he had his best friend in San Jose for a very long time. He was one of the guys, one of the few people that I know would come around. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to just ask my dad if he's around, because I would like to see him. And I also know my dad would appreciate it, but it isn't me doing it to please him. It's because I also have questions. Like, it's definitely a little bit selfish, but I feel like I wouldn't be in this place where I can feel like I can ask that question had we not been doing the work that we've been doing. What about you?
No, I would definitely agree that the Father's Day dread really stuck out. And the reason why it stuck out, and you hit it earlier, because I actually, I edit these YouTube videos. And so it just so happened that I was editing Forgiveness, and it happened to be airing about 2 weeks before the Father's Day dread. Now, we recorded Forgiveness, I want to say like maybe 1 or 2 months before the Father's Day dread. And so I know that you and I kind of joked and made light of this Father's Day dread. We came up with these like hilarious greeting cards.
Classic.
Yeah. If you haven't, please go to the social on Instagram. We posted a few of them there. But, and so I'm editing them. And so in Forgiveness, you can hear the hurt, you can hear the pain of past traumas. And then this Father's Day dread was actually one where to me, it was actually more of a forgiveness episode, or coming to empathy. I think I think you and I talked a lot about how we have empathy for our fathers, or at least, I know I had mentioned it, and that was the first Father's Day where I actually thought about what it was like from his perspective rather than my own. And that really opened my eyes to that situation in a whole new way.
And that really was what it came down to. I think there was a certain level of empathy that we hadn't tapped into until, for whatever reason, that episode. So it was very nice to see. And maybe that's why the shift was there too, just seeing it as we play them back, because, we're both busy business women with our own businesses. So us recording ahead of time helps us, but we try not to get too far ahead. But that's definitely, there was a time difference between recording Forgiveness and dropping it and recording Father's Day dread. So there was distance there, and that time helped with the healing, I think.
It's nice because I think I've mentioned to you off air that, I've read journals that I've written a year ago, and just the growth you see in the way that you think and the way that you act and speak. And a year can be a very long time. So when we're talking about recording an episode 1 to 2 months beforehand, before it drops, I mean, just even in that short time frame, there was this huge paradigm shift. So that was really nice to see, because it does reaffirm that we're on the right path, that we are on, that we're doing the hard work necessary to get to where we want to be. So that's exciting.
It is super exciting. I love that.
So you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but what are you most looking forward to in this podcast?
In the next year or the next corner?
I'll let you choose.
You know what? I'm really looking forward to us. Well, we have a series that's going to be coming up. So sneak peek on the resistance and reasons why people resist. So I'm really looking forward to diving further into that. And I'm also really looking forward to figuring out how to get authors. Like, I know we both read a lot. I read a lot in the mental health and self-help, neuroscience, really nerdy shit. But I love it. And so I would love to set an intention of getting some of these authors on, because I've seen them going on other podcasts that are also, homegrown kind of podcasts. I'm like, you know what? Why not? Let's do it. So that's what I'm looking forward to, setting that intention of, David Rock, I'm talking to you, and others. But I'm also looking forward to us creating some more original content.
That was actually what I was going to say. Actually, a few things. First, I'm really looking forward to when this drops. Our live streaming session will be the following week. So I'm really looking forward to that as we gear up for our 1-year podcast celebration. I'm also anxious because who the hell knows how that's going to go. We still haven't finalized it, but I'm assuming that this is going to be live streamed through YouTube since we already have a channel. But we've already sent out an invite to a few of the previous guests that we've had on the show, just to have them come in for a couple minutes, just check in, see what they've been doing since being on the pod. And it's just nice to have that ability to reconnect. So I'm super excited about that. But yeah, I think another thing that I'm really looking forward to is finding more ways to engage with listeners in a meaningful way, not just to post or to just share stories or anything like that, but to really engage in a way that is meaningful to all parties, not just listeners, but to ourselves.
So more engagement, more engagement in all the things.
Yeah, because I think you shared a story about how a listener reached out to you, and I think you said she had like ADHD or something like that, and it's really hard for her to concentrate, but she's able to listen to our entire episode and is engaged the entire time and doesn't lose attention. So that feels really good.
It does feel really good. And so if you have been holding back and want to tell us how amazing we are, please take this invitation to do so on preferably wherever you listen to the podcast. But yes, the in-person gratitude, or even the fact that somebody has, reached out. Like, I don't know about you, but I'll get random text messages at times being like, hey, I heard this one thing you said and that really had an impact. And in my head, I'm like, okay, whatever. I just say the things that I believe are true. And if people listen, great. And if they don't, well, it is what it is. But to get that confirmation of, hey, not only are we listening, but it has an impact and it's powerful and we're appreciating it. Like, yeah, that totally gives you the feels.
I think another thing I'm also looking forward to, which is also a wish I have for the podcast, is to find ways to monetize, because I listen to other podcasts, not often, but I just think, it might be a little biased here. I think we produce really good content.
I do too. But one of the things I want to keep in mind is Gary Vee always talks about how his best years were when he was undiscovered, when he was just like doing the stuff.
when he was us, is what you're saying?
Yes, when he was in our seat, when he was doing his YouTube channel and like nobody was listening, and he was just, at least it felt that way. And then what it looks like to everybody else is, oh wow, you're an overnight success. Like, out of nowhere you came out of, and all of a sudden you're in all the things. It's like, that's not out of nowhere. There's a ton of work that's going on behind it. And even though maybe directly we haven't monetized it, we've monetized the podcast in different ways that are more personal, right? With you being out there, using the skills, learning how to, be out in this public space. Because I hate to break it to you, but we're influencers.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But I think for me, it's like and this is a mentality that I need to get myself out of, which is, okay, well, I'm taking time out of my quote unquote day job to edit videos for the podcast, or to post on social media, or to reply back to a listener, and I do these things because it does give me joy. But it's like, sometimes I'll be like, well, I really need to keep working to make that money. So it would be nice to be able to kind of, if anything, just offset that slightly so that it's almost like I'm giving myself mental permission to work on this because it's generating something. And I know that it doesn't have to generate money in order to be fulfilling, but it would be nice.
Well, one of the things that relates back to is what we were talking about with the mental health day, right? In that episode, you have a hard time not being productive. And I think that's just part of our American culture. And
and that's also because ding, 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 I got diagnosed with OCPD, which is obsessive compulsive personality disorder. So yes, I need to constantly be doing something. It is me. And I remember, listeners, I told Siria this at the gym the next morning after I found out. And she's like, man, I want a personality disorder. So
yeah,
she had FOMO.
I'm the normal one, guys. I'm the normal one. Isn't that crazy?
I just don't think you've been diagnosed with something. I feel like everybody's diagnosed with something.
No, my therapist and I talked about it.
Oh,
and she's
my
like, you
God.
have no diagnosed mental disorders. I'm like,
You know, maybe she's afraid to tell you.
oh no, she would tell me.
Sit with my counselor. She'll toss them out like candy. It's fine.
I think there's a conflict. I think we can have the same counselor. It'd be too much.
So I kind of just want to wrap this up with like looking at where we started since we are in the end of the fourth quarter. Looking back at where we started to where we are now, what is one thing that's sticking out for you?
From starting to now, what has stuck out? Good question. I would say the fact that we've figured out how to be so consistent. I think that's not too surprising for us, but it went by so fast and we have not missed a beat. We have not missed a single Tuesday since we started. We have always had something on there, and that has included us taking trips, little vacations, taking care of ourselves. And so just really how, I don't want to say seamless because that's not quite it, but how it has fit into our lives and how we've made space for something that brings us joy and that we enjoy doing and figuring out how to do it. Yeah, I may not always get all the research done that I want to do, but you know what? I know I have something to say and something to add to the conversation. So I think that just seeing, hey, this is part of, I don't want to say my identity, but it's certainly something that in my community I'm known for. It's like, oh, City has a podcaster now. It's like, yeah, like it's just something I do. Okay. But it wouldn't have started without this. Right. And so even though I started Lawyered with Siria, the second spinoff, it's something I wouldn't have done without this. I needed this start, this, soft lily pad or whatever you want to call it, just like this soft pillow, this space of safety, which is something we talk a lot about on the podcast, right? I needed this to be able to really start launching into the next things. And I'm going to throw out a term out here. I'm looking for this next year, not only in the podcast, but in all these other things, to really hone down on what is my zone of genius. Because, dear listeners, and Melissa, she's going to hate this, I'm talented at many, many things. So, but what is my genius? And I want to sit down and take some time to figure out what that really is. Because, I can do lots of things well, but what is really my essence?
Well, your essence is stinking up the place. So anyways, I would say for me, looking back at, obviously, for those that watch our YouTube channel, we have a green screen. We're recording this episode with a green screen, and we have soft boxes and a ring light and all the things and these mics. I might be a little extra, but it makes my editing job a lot easier. But I just think about how we started, which is, I don't even think we recorded our first episodes using a phone or anything. My mic, hello, if you've been with us since the beginning, you know that I was having lots of trouble with my audio.
The princess and the mic, yeah.
Yes. And so, just so much growth. And that really comes back to my word for 2021, which we set in an episode earlier this year, which was nurture. And this nurtures my room to grow, my curiosity to expand and try new things. And, this podcast has really allowed me to live into my word for the year, my intention for the year. So it's been wonderful.
That is wonderful, especially because we are at this point, what, August? Crazy. We're 8 months into the year, and a lot of times our intentions that we set early in the year, I prefer intentions over resolutions. By this time, most of those things have long died, but I do feel like for us, our words have actually continued on for this year. Mine was play big, and I've been doing it, and I continue to do it. And I was just looking at book proposals and figuring out how I could do that next step for myself. And it was funny because I was looking at one of the sample ones, which was a real book proposal that has been out there. And when it got to their like social following, it was like, I've got 400 likes here. I've got 200, followers on Instagram. I was like, well, shit, if you got a book deal. But, that might be a little bit of ego. But just figuring out, hey, you know what? If you want to play big, you can. We are our own limits.
Absolutely. So I'm really looking forward to the next year of podcasting and what that will bring.
Yes, we're going to a podcast conference.
Oh, yeah.
A convention. Have you ever been to like any kind of convention?
Yeah.
That's not work related?
Oh, not work related. No. I don't do anything unless it's for work. No, so this, and even this, it's not work, but it is work, So, I am looking forward to that because even in this podcast, forum has really provided me with the skill sets that have helped me in my professional setting.
Mm-hmm.
I have noticed my speech has gotten better. My ability to facilitate conversation, ask questions has really strengthened since starting this podcast.
Yeah, so I could see where you would think it was kind of work related.
It is. Well. I'm gonna classify it as work, so maybe I can write it off, with Pug Productions and all. So.
Well, yes, for that purpose, IRS and everybody else, it is totally work related.
The government, if you're listening, this is completely business related.
Dear FBI agent following me, this is totally work related, but it is. But I'm really excited because one of the people who helped us with the podcast was Kristen Meinzer with her book. So you want to start a podcast, and she's going to be one of the speakers at She Podcast. I'm super excited about it.
So coming back to the podcast conference, I know you submitted something, and I'm going to ask on air. Did we not get our proposal approved to speak?
As of yet, no.
How do they not want us?
Because they're getting Kristen Meinzer. Like,
and
I get it. I get it. But you know what?
I don't understand.
So yes, but you know what? Part of it was just applying, just being like, fuck it. Yeah, we're going to put our names out there. And I think that that's really, for me anyways, that play big mentality where it's really come in is just, I'm going to put it out there. Like I went to an audition, which I haven't really talked about anywhere yet. I do have a video that I haven't posted about it yet. And I had so much fun. Did I get cast? No, I did not.
Okay, but you looked cute, though.
I looked super cute. I had the best outfit there. Let's be real. And the gal who did get cast told me so. So I was like, okay. But it was fun, and it was about being out there and just giving myself that opportunity of, I'm going to go. And it was something where I had been practicing and rehearsing like all weekend and everything. And then I got cold feet. And this one over here, Melissa was like, do it. And I was like, I don't have an outfit. And she's like, really, you're going to tell me that you, Miss Overbuyer, don't have anything to wear? And I was like, yeah. And then started thinking about it. I was like, okay, well, maybe I do. And then I went home and figured that shit out and showed up with the cutest outfit, my little explorer outfit. You guys will see it in the video because, yeah, I'm going to post it or have by this point. I don't know.
But that's just so exciting. And again, I think that the podcast has really helped, accentuate or bring forth these new endeavors that I think that we would have gotten there, but maybe not as quickly had it not been for the podcast.
Agreed. And I think part of it too is that it just shows our range, right? Like our interviews have been with, friends, family, and complete strangers that we're meeting for the first time on the podcast. Like, we have range. I like that. I appreciate that. We're not cookie cutters. We're not one thing, which, is one of my favorite things to say, and not just one thing. And this is another way to express ourselves. We want to hear from you. What would you like to see more of on Pivotal Moments HQ? Let us know on our Instagram, Pivotal Moments HQ. We want to thank our producer and music director, Ron Johnson. This has been an Astronomicus DMR production. Thank you for listening. Remember, it's never too late and you are right on time.